Friday's prayer at a mosque on the outskirts of London. For Britain's Muslim communities, it's a highly emotional and even tense time. From videos of beheaded hostages carried out by British jihadists in Syria to Twitters of foreign fighters calling to support the so-called Islamic State or ISIL, Muslim communities are worried. Yet they've also been accused of not speaking out enough against those who've tarnished the name of their religion. Not so for Shauk, who's behind a series of videos in which British imams have condemned ISIL or ISIS and its brutal version of Islam.
I think the best way to describe ISIS is that they're cowboys. They don't represent the religion. They're not qualified to represent the religion.
ISIS is not justified. We condemn that.
As a Sunni Muslim, I do not accept the Khilafah of ISIS. I consider ISIS as a terrorist organization.
But Warich admits these videos are just the beginning of a new type of battle.
Conflict zones. The Muslim community has been communicating an anti-extremist message internally. But what needs to happen now is that the Muslim community needs to talk beyond the Muslim community. This is an unconventional war. This war has never been waged before in this way. There's always been propaganda, there's always been communication channels opened by both sides. But the concept of taking a communication message or a message directly to people without the various filters into the pockets of people, onto phones that people have direct access to, this is unprecedented.
But can British and other European Muslim communities compete with a group whose videos of recruiting and gruesome killings are said to have gone viral and global thanks in large part to social media? And some videos produced by members of ISIL have also been said to be of extreme high quality, almost Hollywood style. But Jamie Bartlett, who's written a book called The Dark Net, says although the quality is good, it doesn't take a lot of money to make them.
The cost of producing high-quality content and the cost of distributing it now, thanks to social media platforms, is actually very, very low. It's very cheap to do. And what's more, many of the people that are involved in ISIS's or ISIL's media work are young men, young European men, for whom producing, decent content and knowing how to run a social media campaign is actually second nature. The only difference really is that we're surprised because they're an Islamist group.
A skilled social media war run by a group whose aim is to create a 7th century Islamic State or Caliphate. It's an irony not lost on Aaron Saltman, who analyzes online extremism.
So with each video that they are producing, they are changing and altering their editing and how they want to portray themselves based off of international reactions to their previous content that they produce. So as you see most recently, they have not actually carried out a beheading because they realized international media was working against them, against their propaganda and recruitment. And so actually they haven't carried out the beheading in the final one. They're using that victim and target to espouse their own narrative further.
Tom Keating is a former investment banker who's been studying the financing of terrorist organizations. He agrees that ISIL is social media savvy, but he also argues it's financially savvy as well. Keating claims that by first controlling small areas in Iraq, they made money off of racketeering and extortions. But ISIL's so-called financial success also comes from learning from others' mistakes, namely Al-Qaeda.
I think in the media eye, ISIL, the Islamic State, has come from nowhere, but you have to bear in mind that this is an organisation that has its roots back 10, 15 years. And it has had a lot of time to learn lessons of how to finance itself, how to intelligently build its power base. And one of the lessons that it has learned is you need to have a reliable source of financing before advancing your cause. That's one of the things that brought Al-Qaeda in Iraq, as it was previously, down in 2006 and 2007. If you look at the way they've operated, to some extent there are lessons that one can learn from corporate finance. One of the ways in which small companies take over big companies is they look for big companies that have a lot of cash available to them and they attack those companies. And that's exactly what the Islamic State has done. It has looked for financially attractive targets, cities, oil fields, and it has taken control of those.
It's estimated that ISIL now has a wealth of some 1.5 billion euros, money with which to buy weapons and continue its goal of an Islamic State. Afzal Ashraf is a former member of the British military who worked in Iraq. He believes that ISIL learned from al-Qaeda's mistakes in more ways than one.
The reason why ISIL has usurped al-Qaeda is that it has achieved what al-Qaeda failed to achieve. What ISIL managed to do was to get territory, not because that it was a powerful military force, but simply because the Iraqi army failed to be an effective defense force. And so, having exploited this political and military void, it has controlled a lot of land, and so it feels ready to declare an Islamic State and then even an Islamic caliphate.
Stopping this Islamic State from spreading its roots is at the heart of the US-led coalition airstrikes. But is it enough? ISIL has proven itself resilient, relentless, but organized. For some, the only solution is to cut its financial bloodline, which in turn will cut its security, its support.
The risk of taking territory is that you have a population that start to rely on you. So you better make sure the lights stay on, the air conditioning works, and that people continue to get their salaries. You know, one of the issues that the US and other coalition members found in Iraq in 2003 onwards was the lights didn't stay on, the air conditioning didn't work, and people very quickly get fed up with that.
This is the Active Change Foundation's youth centre in East London. Until a few days ago, this centre was little known outside the UK. But today, these young British Muslims are famous for using social media in their fight against ISIL or ISIS.
The ISIS do not represent Islam or any Muslim.
Because it's totally un-Islamic.
Because they're killing innocent people.
Not in my name.
Not in my name.
As being a young British Muslim in a society where we've been criticised and been hit by all this kind of bombarding news and everywhere, like ISIS claiming to be Muslims.
Not in my name.
Not in my name.
Not in my name.
Not in my name.
By using not in my name, what I'm doing, I'm representing myself, my culture, my beliefs to our people. They're letting them know that whatever they're doing, they're not doing for the right cause. They're not doing in my name, they're doing for themselves.
The most powerful messaging that will go against Islamic State will actually come from civil society. Governments, it's like your dad telling you not to do drugs. The actual most powerful messaging will come from faith leaders, local imams, community activists. The more angles that voice can come from, the more powerful that counter-narrative is. Because just as many angles are being distributed from the extremist side. They have their own extremist imams, they have women that have gone over that are now messaging in a lot of different languages. So we need to counter that from as many voices as possible.
In Britain, but also throughout the world's Muslim communities, most are hoping their voice against ISIL will grow stronger and louder. But for others, there's still concern as to how the fight against ISIL, be it physical or virtual, can be won.